a ceasefire deal, which has been being negotiated for some time, which was essentially like a short pause in the fighting, hostages released, prisoners released, was proposed and dealt upon, and it seemed like Israel was trying to sabotage the agreement because they wanted Hamas to reject it, because Israel started boasting about how they were going to invade Rafah no matter what, which seemed like a ploy by Israel to make Hamas reject the deal. But then Hamas accepted the deal. So, but now Israel is saying they don't want to accept the deal. So, like, yeah, Hamas has called their bluff, basically. Like, it seems like Israel wants to just mulch Rafah. Like, Israel wants this over. Israel wants to annihilate Rafah. And the reason they proposed this ceasefire is because they wanted Hamas to reject it, so that it could be like Hamas's fault or whatever. So Hamas ended up accepting it instead, and now Israel's like, no, wait. Actually, no, never mind. Yeah, I saw this. From Israeli official, latest developments appear to be a ruse intended to make Israel look like the side refusing a deal. So this is like incredibly transparent propaganda, Like, this is up there with Hitler invading Poland and saying, like, actually, we're doing this because Poland launched an attack on the ethnic German people in the western border of, like, it's the most, like, we were going to invade no matter what. All of this, diplomatic pretense was just an effort to make the other side look bad. Russia did this before their invasion as well, where they clearly wanted to invade, and then right when they had all their troops poised at the border, they established like 50 false flags to, like, oh, well, what, this was like a car bomb that went off. Oh, what about this thing? We caught a guy, and they were all like fake, but it was just a way of trying to create a pretext for invasion. And Israel has done the same thing. It just hasn't worked out the way they wanted, because Hamas actually did accept the ceasefire proposal, but now Israel's committing to the bit anyway, which means that Israel wants to slaughter Rafah so badly that they're willing to, like, be this desperate about it, Some Israelis called for a deal. Hundreds of Israelis, including families of hostages held in Gaza, oh, sweetie, they don't give a shit about you, protested outside the military headquarters in Tel Aviv, calling on the government to reach a deal to free the hostages. U.S. is reviewing Hamas's ceasefire response, officials said. Its allies in the Middle East. I can confirm Hamas issued a response. Okay, so Miller and the U.S. government broadly does want a ceasefire because Israel is so bloodthirsty that it's genuinely getting in the way of our geopolitical interests. Like, as I've said many times before, Israel is a borderline rogue state, in spite of the fact that they are only powerful because of us, because we protect them in the UN, we give them their weapons, we give them support, we give them aid. We're like a diplomatic ally they need. Like, Israel's behavior has been a massive detriment to our interests in the region, After Israel, like, rejected this deal, now the United States is like, okay, what do we do? How do we spin this? How do we engage with this? I think someone, like, one of these links is the White House.
Really enjoys doing commencement speeches. He understands how.
During his call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, the president again made this clear. He also made clear that we continue to believe that the hostage is doing that response, and we're discussing it with our partners in the region. Director Burns, as you know, is there, and he's working this in real time on the ground. I won't be able to comment any further on this until we know where things stand. I hope you can understand that. I know everybody's curious about what's in this response, what the Israeli reaction to it is. I'm just not going to get ahead of the process. We want to get these hostages out. We want to get a ceasefire in place for 6 weeks. We want to increase humanitarian assistance, and the last thing that I want to do is say anything at this podium that's going to put that process at risk. Regardless, as we've said before, we still believe that reaching an agreement is the absolute best outcome, not only for the hostages, but for the Palestinian people. And we're not going to stop working to that outcome. Now, as you know, the president talked with Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning. The call lasted about 30 minutes and was constructive. The president...
Wonderful. Happy to hear that. Yeah, I think this White House briefing might have started before word spread that Israel was not going through with it. Like, I don't know what level... Like, again, this is all happening, like, right now, or it happened during, I don't know. Look, people in Rafah react to the news that Hamas accepted a ceasefire proposal from 1 hour ago. Okay, from the State Department 2 hours ago. Key points. A ceasefire is absolutely achievable. A military operation now would make it incredibly difficult to sustain increase in aid. U.S. is quite concerned about Israel's shutdown of Al Jazeera's operations in the country. The U.S. will be discussing Hamas's response with allies. A major operation Rafah is not something we can support, but he would not speculate on what actions the U.S. would take if such an operation went ahead. Okay, so toothless then. Nice. Referred to the Pentagon for how a peer aid would be built. U.S.'s objective is a ceasefire. Yeah, well, are you going to do anything about it, or are you just going to, like, say you want that? Israel has already rejected the deal. Yeah, I know. From the Israeli Prime Minister's office, the War Cabinet unanimously decided that Israel continues the Operation Rafah to exert military pressure on Hamas in order to promote the release of our hostages and the other goals of the war. The ceasefire deal was literally to release the hostages. The ceasefire that Israel was on board with until Hamas accepted it would have released the hostages. How many hostages they have, by the way? Like 5! Is this gaslighting? No, it's just lying. The U.S. is committed to stopping invasion of Rafah, a U.S. official said. Really? You don't say. Israel still plans to proceed with a 90-day plan to invade Rafah, which Washington is committed to stopping. A U.S. official familiar with truce negotiations between hostages told Reuters on Monday. Netanyahu, on Monday. Why are you saying 10 minutes ago if you're repeating information that was given to you on... Wait, sorry, I'm sorry. Today is Monday. I thought it was Tuesday. My bad. Okay, my apologies, Okay, thought it was... Yeah, okay, sorry. Today is Monday. I know. Look, I don't have a regular 9 to 5. Okay, I know. Thank you. All right, sorry. Okay. Netanyahu and the War Cabinet have not appeared to approach the latest phase of negotiations with Hamas in good faith, asking not to be identified because of the sensitivity of the matter. That's actually a pretty big leak then. Or not a leak, sorry, like that's pretty indicative for a US official to go off the to be kept anonymous to say like, yeah, Israel is acting in bad faith with Hamas. That's actually pretty impressive, I would say. Breaking, IDF forces are now attacking and operating against targets of Hamas in a targeted manner in Eastern Rafah. Faytux News is a Zionist outlet, IDF said in a statement. I mean, that's not new. Oh, this is pretty grim. Breaking, President Biden has just secured a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. It is because of President Biden's leadership that the conflict is halting for the time being. This post has been deleted. Whoops! Damn, sure is a shame we don't seem to have the ability to influence Israel's behavior, even remotely, you know? Like, they can just do literally whatever they want. And that's, you know, that's cool. That's great. Oh, that one didn't last long. That one lasted all of, like, maybe an hour. I hope Biden is furious. Oh, I'm sure he is. I'm sure it must be very frustrating for Biden, that exerting all of literally no power. You know, what do you think Israel's going to do if you show them time and time again that they can do what they want? Obviously. How many red lines has Israel crossed over and over and over and over and over again, rejecting all oversight? Like, of course this is going to happen. From 12 Republican senators threatening the International Criminal Court chief prosecutor with severe personal consequences if he goes ahead with an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, to Romney literally just outwardly stating that the ban on TikTok was motivated by an effort to protect Israel. Like, the American government has given Israel just full permission to do whatever the f it wants. There are riots happening in Tel Aviv right now over Israel backing out of the deal. Yeah, because not the American, because the families of the hostages despise Netanyahu. Is there any news on that? On there being an outbreak of protests? It would have like just started happening. Oh, here we go. From 9 minutes ago, police try to remove hostage families blocking traffic in Ayalon Highway. Playing drums, calling it for a deal before the Rafah operation. Yeah. Dude, there's so much going on right now. The Tel Aviv protests are huge. Yeah, I mean, this isn't like a current photo, but yeah, there have been quite a few. There have been huge crackdowns, too. John McCain's wife saying full-blown famine. 1 second.
Every month since the start of the war, but the war is nearly in its 7th month. How dire is the humanitarian crisis on the ground right now in Gaza?
Well, whenever you have conflict like this and emotions rage high and things happen in a war, famine happens. And so what I can explain to you is that there is famine, full-blown famine in the north, and it's moving its way south.
Just a little famine, you know. This is a McCain? Yeah, John McCain's wife, Cindy McCain. It's difficult to know. It's difficult to know, like, what news is even current.
HR 6, it's official. The United States is under complete control from a foreign nation.
This is anti-Semitic rhetoric. Guys, if America was under the control of Israel or the Jews, you know why we would know that? Because somebody would have said it by now, okay? Again, this is literally just a massive coalition of national, military, and geopolitical interests coming together that have just painted over themselves, saying, yeah, this is like pro-Jew, pro-Israel. That's it. If you actually look at the goals, intentions, and makeup of the people engaging in this behavior, it has literally nothing to do with Jews or Israel. Like, Israel is just a borderline colonial front that we take
U.S.
advantage
House
of.
of Representatives have just voted to criminalize criticism of Israel.
That's not true.
H.R. 6090, known as the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, will redefine anti-Semitism as set forth by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance for the Enforcement of Federal Anti-Discrimination Laws. What does that mean? Well, if you say that Israel is a racist state, that's anti-Semitism. If you draw comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis, that's also anti-Semitism.
Pretty
So
specific.
in practice, if this bill also passes in the Senate, it would be illegal for Americans to voice opinions such as how Israel cannot be, by definition, both a Jewish state and a liberal democracy, as this op-ed in the Jerusalem Post points out. This would be anti-Semitic.
So it doesn't make it illegal to criticize Israel. It means that definition of anti-Semitism would be used on college campuses as part of the government's like metric for determining bigoted behavior.
And illegal.
It's still horrific, but it's not like a broad ban
to say. Or how it's racist for there to be segregated roads that separate Palestinian and Jewish settlers in Jerusalem. Criticisms like these would also be considered anti-Semitic and therefore would be illegal to say, even though this is in Haaretz. Or if you want to criticize the IDF, their shoot first, ask later policy, that is also anti-Semitic, and therefore you would not be allowed to say
I don't think that would count under the definition as provided by the bill.
it. It's funny, you could bash America all day long, but if you dare voice criticism of Israel...
See, this is... Okay, guys, this is literally like JQ shit, okay? The reason why they're framing it the way they are is because going after people on campuses who criticize Israel is just an easy way of cracking down on left anti-war protest on college campuses. Like, it's literally just... Like, it would be basically like if Candace Owens led a Republican contingent of the legislature to say it is now anti-black to say that black people are victims of systemic racism because that's infantilizing them, and then for you to go like, oh, black people have taken control, it is now considered racist to say that this or that or whatever. It's like, well, no, this is clearly just like an insincere attempt at weaponizing identity politics in order to achieve a broader right-wing agenda. So yeah, just be careful with that. Gotta be careful with that. Trust me, guys, if it was Israel or the Jews controlling America, some official would have said it by now. You really think a conspiracy like that can go that far? Like, officials say stupid mask-off shit all the time. They're incredibly incompetent when it comes to like hiding their narrative. How many times have we seen like the fact that we know they're lying about climate change or about whatever else, or Romney talking about TikTok? Like, they say this shit all the time, and yet not a single example in decades of American-Israeli foreign policy of anyone slipping like, yeah, we're cucked by the Jews or Israel or whatever. Like, it's just not happening. It's just a convenient excuse. Just be very careful with that. Was he right with his examples now being illegal? No, if it passes the Senate, it gets signed into law. That would mean that on college campuses, behavior like that could be considered anti-Semitic with regards to their campus policy concerning like hate speech or bigotry or whatever. It's not about making it illegal broadly. It's still very, 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 very bad. Did you go over that definition? Yes. Joe Biden spoke with Netanyahu before the Hamas response was received. It wasn't a pressure call. It wasn't about twisting his arm towards a certain set of parameters. That's great, Kirby. Thank you. I really appreciate it. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. Thank you. Israeli leaders have approved a military operation to Rafah. Israeli forces are now striking the area. So as we're talking right now, the missiles have begun falling. The move came hours after Hamas announced that it had accepted an Egyptian Qatari ceasefire proposal. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said the proposal was far from Israel's essential demands, but that it would nonetheless send negotiators to continue talks in a ceasefire. Wait, this is breaking now? So now after Israel said that it was a trick and they're not doing it? Wait, what are the differences between the previously proposed ceasefire and the one that the Egyptian Qatari ceasefire proposal? My understanding is that the fundamentals updated 3 hours ago. This was updated like 15 minutes ago to me. Less than 24 hours after the IDF dropped leaflets telling tens of thousands of people to free eastern Rafah, Israeli forces have begun striking the area. The IDF tweeted, currently conducting targeted strikes. Yeah. They're doing the whole like, yeah, if people die, it's their fault for not getting out of the way first. They've begun strikes, and they're saying they're going to evacuate a bunch of people. It's not different. It's Hamas reiterating they're agreeing to the deal by agreeing to a second, largely identical agreement. I just want to know what the exact difference is between the two agreements. Israeli spokesman goes unhinged.
remain the same. And thirdly,
Oh, this
to
guy.
ensure that Gaza...
Remember this guy? This is the guy who got trashed in the interview by that, what was it, in the Netherlands? The Dutch?
never again poses a threat to Israel. Remain the same. Firstly, to bring home all 132 remaining hostages, still brutally imprisoned by Hamas in their terror dungeons. Secondly, to destroy Hamas militarily and politically. And thirdly, to ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. Today, we here in Israel begin our challenging remembrance season with Holocaust Martyrs and Heroes Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah.
Okay, I don't need to watch this guy to know he's a fucking psychopath. This guy is like this guy is like a ghoul that one would conjure to make you hate Zionists, and you'd be like, oh, that's really over the top, but he's him. He is in fact him, a Norwegian. This is so incredibly evil. I really, really want to break down on the difference between these ceasefire deals. Israel to send delegation negotiate. While attacks are continuing on Rafah this evening, Israel says it is planning to send a delegation to negotiate the ceasefire deal further after saying it was far from meeting Israel's demands. In what way? Confirmed by Benjamin Netanyahu, mediations which result in the offer of Hamas been led to Egypt involving Qatar. It's not clear what exactly Hamas have agreed to as part of the deal, but it is thought to include the release of hostages and the return of displaced Palestinians within Gaza. But the from Reuters, we did have that one update where they said that an anonymous U.S. State Department official familiar with the situation claimed Israel was acting in bad faith, which is a pretty strong condemnation. Yeah, right here. Netanyahu and war cabinet have not appeared to approach the latest phase negotiations in good faith. Yeah. U.S. to put a hold on ammunition shipment to Israel. The Biden administration is highly concerned Israel will invade the southern Gaza city of Rafah, where more than 1 million displaced Palestinians have taken shelter. Netanyahu released several statements in recent days saying he intended to order an invasion of Rafah regardless of whether Israel and Hamas reached a deal for the release of hostages being held in Gaza and a ceasefire. Does that sound to you like somebody negotiating in good faith when somebody's like, yeah, agree to a ceasefire. By the way, no matter what happens, we're invading. Let it be now or 40 days from now. Like, yeah. Netanyahu hinted at tensions with the Biden administration in a statement on Holocaust Remembrance Day. Then he did the classic Zionist thing where everything bad that happens to him is the Holocaust again, yeah. In the terrible Holocaust, there were great world leaders who stood by idly. Therefore, the first lesson of the Holocaust is, if we do not defend ourselves, no one will defend us. And if we need to stand alone, we will stand alone. Nice. Anthony Blinken visited Israel and had a tough conversation with Netanyahu, I'm sure, regarding a possible Israeli operation in Rafah. Two sources briefed in the meeting said, major military operation. This article is from yesterday, by the way. Egyptian and Qatari mediators are still trying to reach a hostage deal between Israel and Hamas that would lead to a pause in the fighting in Gaza. Hamas in a statement on Friday said it was reviewing the current proposal with positive spirit and was going to Cairo in the same spirit to reach an agreement. While Israel waits for Hamas's response to the proposal. Wait. Okay, this is what confuses me. So the narrative right now seems to be that Israel put forward a different ceasefire proposal than the one that Hamas agreed to. But here, from an article yesterday, it says Israel's waiting for Hamas's response to the proposal. And prior to them saying the proposal, they're talking about Hamas's ceasefire negotiation with Egypt and Qatar. It seems like it was well known that Hamas was engaging with this hostage ceasefire deal. Like it's not like Hamas just like snapped their fingers and went, "Whoop, we agreed to this one," or whatever. But like this was a known factor. So why then is it a surprise that they agreed to that one? It's not like it's sudden or whatever. And was Israel not a part of this negotiation? Were they like locked out of the mediation of a ceasefire deal as one of the two parties that would be involved in the ceasefire? Why would that doesn't make any sense. I'm almost positive this is like Israeli fuckery. Like, you know, I like the idea. It is so obvious that Netanyahu just wants to annihilate Rafah and is desperate, like just drooling for it, just desperately wants it. So like, there's no reason to believe, given all of this, that they would act in good faith. Everything makes sense if Israel like f***s around here, you know? Israel's sending negotiators, but they're invading Rafah anyway. Like they were, so you're telling me that Israel was anticipating a good faith ceasefire negotiation when they were primed to begin the ground invasion this day? Like, it's not like the ceasefire talks fell through and then like, oh, they start mounting to invade or whatever. It's like, oh, no, here's the time. Whoop. You know, that's pretty convenient timing, I have to say. I mean, Israel's supposed to be evacuating Rafah to Khan Yunis. Yeah, well, I think there's a plan to evacuate like 100,000 people, but there's 1.4 million people in Rafah, or thereabouts, you know? The IDF says that it's asking residents of eastern Rafah to evacuate, but they're already striking. Is this a Zionist source? Probably, yeah. Yeah, almost certainly from the wording here. He does intel stuff, so he's pro-Israel, but he's pro-Israel? Yeah, well, that's all it takes. They're already striking. Okay, proposed ceasefire. Okay, hold on. Proposed ceasefire, the phases. Hamas said on Monday it had agreed to a 3-phase deal for a ceasefire and hostages for prisoner swap, though an Israeli official said the deal was not acceptable to Israel because the terms had been softened. Okay. The U.S., which alongside Qatar and Egypt has played a mediation role in the talks, said it was studying the Hamas response and would discuss it with Middle East allies. Studying the Hamas response? What does that mean? They said yes. Based on details announced so far by Hamas officials and an official briefed on the talks, the deal that the Palestinian group said it had agreed to included the following. Phase 1, 42-day ceasefire period. Hamas releases 33 Israeli hostages in return for Israel releasing Palestinians from Israeli jails. Israel partially withdraws troops from Gaza and allows free movement of Palestinians from south to north Gaza. Phase 2, another 42-day period that features an agreement to restore a sustainable calm to Gaza, language that an official briefed in the talks said Hamas and Israel had agreed to in order to take discussion of a permanent ceasefire off the table. The complete withdrawal of most Israeli troops from Gaza. Hamas releases Israeli reservists and some soldiers in return for Israel releasing Palestinians from jail. And then part 3, part 42? Oh, you're doing a bit, I see. Phase 3, the completion of exchanging bodies and starting the implementation of reconstruction according to the plan overseen by Qatar, Egypt, and the UN, ending the complete blockade of the Gaza Strip. Okay, what about this had been softened? So Israel's rejecting this because of some nebulous, but they were part of the talks, no? Israel examining proposal. An accusation not be obliged to meet the Israeli demand for the release of 33 hostages. Yeah, it's the Operation Rafah has begun. It's not just like errant strikes. Yeah, they're doing it. They're doing the full thing. It's happening now. UN Chief Guterres calls on Israel Hamas to go the extra mile needed to finalize deal. Precision strikes against Hamas targets in East Rafah. I'm sure. Prime Minister's office. Hamas's proposal is far from our demands. How is it far from your demands? A professional delegation will meet with negotiators to exhaust discussions. Looking at all of this, I just can't fathom the idea that Israel was participating in this in good faith. They were primed to start attacking now. It looks like they're even going to continue with this ceasefire negotiation blustering into the invasion. So I just know there's going to be a bunch of well, Hamas did a trick bullshit or something. I know for a fact that there's going to be a promoted narrative Hamas. Yeah, I know that already happened. They're going to keep pushing it. Israel was party to the negotiation here. It's not like this got sprung on them, you know? This was mediated. Netanyahu said his war cabinet approved continuing the Operation Rafah in order to increase pressure on Hamas to release Israeli hostages and achieve the country's other war goals. But they would have released the hostages. That was the deal. It's just a lie. They just want to kill them. In parallel, even though the Hamas proposal is far from Israel's necessary demands, in what way? You were party to the negotiations, weren't you? Israel will send a working delegation to the mediators in order to exhaust the possibility of reaching an agreement under conditions acceptable to Israel. So nothing's going to come of this, yeah. So, yeah. Vosh, Israel and Hamas don't negotiate directly. No, but they both observe and engage with the mediators. And Israel should have been party to those mediations. It wouldn't make sense if they weren't. Why would you negotiate a ceasefire deal with the mediators only in contact with Hamas but not Israel? That doesn't make any sense. Netanyahu will never stop. He knows his political career is over the nanosecond the war is over and that he will go to jail. Yeah, maybe. He might just continue the war government forever, you know? Why not? I'm sure Hezbollah is going to become a much more, enticing target the second the Gaza Strip has been fully, neutralized. Why not, right? He's that kind of guy. He's a messy bitch. I'm gonna call it Hezbollah ISIS or whatever. Remember when they did that for a while in a desperate bid to disingenuously get Americans on board with the genocide? They were like, Hamas is like ISIS, even though the two groups despise each other. They literally would do like Hamas-ISIS, and then they dropped it for a while because it was really cringe. Embarrassing.